하이.
하위. 슈퍼소닉, 슈퍼소닉, 슈퍼소닉.
옷 색감 예쁜 거 봐.
알록달록. 슈퍼소닉, 슈퍼소닉. 노동을 혼자 하는 주인.
넓다 넓어.
근데 야외 나와서 너무 좋아. 봐봐, 이렇게 배경이 있어야지 탁 트인 느낌이잖아. 숨 막히는 느낌이 아니야.
너무 금방 되겠는데.
너무 내가 열심히 하기도 하고, 솔직히 8,000원 정도짜리 치고는 너무 양이 적. 그래도 요새 목표가 없었는데 상점에 있는 모든 옷을 다 사버렸어. 그리고 이것도 있더라고. 그 미션 다 깨면 살 수 있는 특별 그게 있더라고. 옷이랑 장갑. 근데 이게 2,000달러인. 개 비싸. 이건 얼마지? 얘도 2,000달러네. 한 4,000달러 모아야 돼. 넉넉하게. 개 비싸, 개 비싸. Show me right now. Show me right supernova.
장비가 더 좋아지진 않나.
뭔가 장비는 다 샀어. 장비는 다 샀어. 스킨밖에 안 남았어. 스킨밖에 안 남았어. 슈퍼소닉, 됐어. 너 근데 외출하면 친구들하고 뭐 하고 노는지 왜 말 안 해? 외출한다고만 하고. 술도 안 먹는다고. 뭐 하고 노는지 왜 말 안 해?
제 얘기했는데 TikTok 촉구 농구 게임 이것저것 한다고.
아니, 너랑 놀아주는 사람이 있음? 다 백수들이요?
TikTok 다 학교 다니.
응? 동네 친구? 띠링.
초딩 때부터 친한 애들.
몇 명인데?
세 명.
부럽다. 난 리얼 초등학생들하고 친한데. 초딩 때부터 친한데. 또 나의 과외 학생들인 초딩들이랑.
누구가 이해준다는 게 대단. 슬슬 올라서. 오장비가 좋으니까 금방 오르네.
야, 어제 쓰던 장비랑 똑같은 거거든? 지금 이 장비로만 지금 5일째 치우고 있어, 미안한데. 계속 똑같은 장비만 쓰고 있어, 바보야. 너가 보고 나서는 이 장비밖에 안 썼어. 꽂은 장비 쓴 적이 없어요, 아저씨. 꽂은 장비는 작년에 썼나 그랬어. 거의 단 적이 없네.
그렇군, 어제 하얀색이었는데.
핀만 바꾼겨. 어제는 하얀색이고, 이거는 너 DLC 사준 스킨이야. 흰색도 똑같이 있어. 성능은 똑같아요. 앨리스 총. 착시요, 착시. 이게 바로 스킨빨이란다. 아니, 저 버섯이 뭔가 혀같이 생겼어, 친구. 버섯 근데 생긴 거 뭔가 이상. 응. 흐물흐물해가. 버섯 식감 싫어. 그냥 이게 어제 워낙 오래 걸린 이유가 그 맵 크기가 엄청 큰. 어제 했던 거.
키키키요 스킨 예쁘네.
너가 사줬잖냐. 히히히. 근데 원래 이거 물총 스킨 끼는 방법 알고 있었거든? 근데 좀 물총이 정신없어가지고 스킨 안 끼고 했는데 흰색에 깔끔하긴 하잖아. 이쁘기도 하고. 근데 그래도 스킨 이것저것 써보려고. 장비는 계속 똑같은 것만. 원래 이런 구석진 게 생긴 것도 이상한데. 근데 솔직히 난 이런 형광 색깔 안 좋아하거든. 눈 아프죠. 파스텔이 더 있고. 고양이 조금 좋죠.
우리의 고양이.
고양이 나 닦는 거 감시 좀. 예쁘기도 하고 못생겼기도 하고. 근데 이게 매우 좋은 수준이면은 다른 건 얼마나 끔찍한 거냐, DLC가. 나중에 궁금해서 사실 다 하긴 할 건데. 이게 매우 좋은 수준이네. 다른 DLC 얼마나 끔찍한데. 완전 빨리 끝나나? 그래서 사람들 빡쳤나? 돈값 안 해가지고. 그러니까 이게 6개 끼워주는 거면 맵 하나당 1,000원, 2,000원 꼴이고.
들어가서.
근데 첫 번째 거 폐쇄 공포증 때문에 그렇지. 첫 번째 거 은근 특이하긴 해. 그리고 스토리라인도 따라가니까 그건 좋아. 어이씨. 내일만 버티면 연휴다. 예. 근데 이거 게임 2가 나와서 너무 좋긴 한데. 바뀌면 허무하다. 열심히 개발을 해줘서 다행이다. 근데 할인할 때까지 기다리려면 거의 1, 2년은 기다려야 돼.
이가 나와?
이거 2 나온다. 그래도 앨리스 원더랜드랑 뭐 백투더 퓨처 이런 거랑 계약할 정도면은 먹이업 아닙니까? 아무리 게임이라도 콜라보로 허락을 해줬잖아. 근데 벌써 75%인데도 돈은 많이 안 줘. 문이다, 문. LiveStream open. 사랑은 열리는 디즈니 영화들 다 물 세척하는 거 재밌었어. 애벌레다 이거. 사랑은 열린 문. 사랑은 열린 ceremony morning. crazy to finish each other friendly. What I was gonna say, I never met someone who thinks so much like me.
키키우 장미는 똑같네.
야, 닭도꼬, 너 닉네임 바꿔. 내 팬닉 달아. 내 팬닉을 달거라.
Finally, very indignantly, she said they had big blue letters. Then we found a newspaper article from Miss Canola Watson with an interview about the whole office full of people. Dave has been watching the bomb squad in the alleyway. The next day, my husband Dan goes to the fire station. The fire chief said, "Oh no, sir, we had no idea." As my husband's leaving,
That's
he
good.
contacted her. He says, "I'm not going to lie to anybody." He said, "We got a memo in this office last week to be on high terrorist alert."
The fire department received a call from the FBI 5 days before the bombing, warning that there were some people coming through town they should be on the lookout for.
When the fire chief is confronted with this information, he said, "You know what? I made a mistake. It was our bomb squad truck down there."
The ATF director told reporters they had taken some precautions for the second anniversary of the siege in Waco.
I was very concerned about that. We did some things here in headquarters and all of our field offices throughout the country to try to be more observant. But it was primarily, we didn't anticipate something like this. We were thinking about, demonstrations and things like that.
I think, yeah, we should have known that there was some danger in the building that day. Due to the fact that April 19th is such a special day to the right wing.
So you're not somebody that could be characterized as a conspiracy theory person in the sense that you feel the federal government was in some way part of this explosion.
No, not at all. Glenn and I had so many questions after the bombing. And they said the biggest manhunt in American history for John Doe number 2. And then they called it off.
The government originally people, and there were numerous credible people in downtown just before the bombing planned to control somewhere else. The government then, about 30 days later, said there is a mistake.
We had learned enough by then that we knew there was something wrong. 22 eyewitnesses told the FBI that they saw him go downtown the morning of the bombing, and they all thought him with someone else. This is Michael Morose's testimony about McVeigh pulling up at Johnny's tire shop.
Definitely a second person, no matter what.
Yeah, dark hair, maybe a dark complexion, wasn't fair skin. I'm fair skin. I can tell the difference between fair and dark skin.
They brought him in. He takes McVeigh out of the lineup. And he tells them there was the man in the ball cap in the passenger side of the truck. I did get a lot of flack from the families and survivors when I wanted to find out about the others involved. To try and point the blame at somebody else, besides the people who parked the truck out front, is irresponsible. Yeah, unanswered questions that we want to answer is key. I know that Melissa and Sharon have expressed views that they think all the truth will come out in the trial.
What do you think the truth is in all of this? Do you support your parents that there are many other people involved?
Definitely. I believe what they're doing is the right thing, and they're going to find the truth. And when they find out the truth, and and everybody knows what's been going on, then we can put this all behind us.
The federal judge has moved the Oklahoma bombing trial to Denver, saying the defendant can't get a fair trial in Oklahoma. The judge said that outweighs the wishes of the victim's family, who wanted the trial in Oklahoma, making it easier for them to attend.
Of what happened April 19th, 1995, I don't want anybody to ever forget. In the beginning, I started drinking, and one night walking back to the bedroom, I had shot and had some everything. And I thought at that time I'd better find something healthy to do, or I'm going to kill myself. So I started a group called Family and Survivors United. The pre-trial hearings started. Judge Medge said, okay, you can be in this courtroom, but if you want to give an impact statement, you better leave, because you can't do both. I said, wait a minute. I have a right to be in that courtroom. On April the 19th, you can't do both. Okay, you can be in this courtroom, but if you want to give an impact statement, you better leave, because you can't do both. I said, wait a minute. I have a right to be in that courtroom. On April 14th, 1995, the bomb that shattered the Puma building in Oklahoma City also shattered my life.
The victims' lobby in the Oklahoma City bombing was so powerful that they actually got a law passed.
It was a miracle. Like it went through the House and Senate.
얘 작은
It was
사다리
solved by
국
Clinton in 2 days.
Prosecutors in the Oklahoma City bombing case have a valuable new witness, Michael Fortier.
At first, Michael Fortier refuses to cooperate, but he's got a wife that's pregnant. He makes a deal that he will fully
오늘 뵙겠군.
갈 거야.
McCain told me he wanted to bomb the building on the anniversary of Waco, April 19th, and the bombing refers to a second American Revolution. They confided everything and to Lori. The most memorable moment in the trial to me was when Lori Fortier talked about Timothy McVeigh.
야, 인스타에 춤춘 거 올렸는데 누가 엄청 잘 췄다고.
15부터 힘들 듯.
Getting Campbell's soup cans out of the kitchen
춤춘 거 다시 보고
and
있어.
laying out how he was going to arrange the barrels of explosives in the truck. It was so real, so vivid. It was the kind of thing I couldn't make up. I sat with Michael Fortier for hundreds of hours. I know everybody was called on the spotlight phone card. When you ask me why I'm so confident that we got the right guys and that there's no one else kind of out there, it's because of things like Fortier and the phone card. This was the governance version of the case, that the spotlight calling card is the sum and substance of McVeigh and Nichols' contact, and it doesn't disclose any co-conspiracy.
I've seen 302. 302s are reported from the FBI. Private citizens said the morning of the bombing was subsequently saturate came and I will tell you why I think that everything followed up. Had they introduced that and followed that live investigation, they would have diminished his culpability. The defense didn't bring it up, and just one more witness that should have been very well good. We didn't call any of the eyewitnesses because their testimony would have been damaging to them. To call them, we're establishing that base was in downtown Oklahoma City, and the government base was largely substantial. The sister of Oklahoma City body suspect Timothy McVeigh says she saw and she has to cooperate with the case against the brother.
I think you've been unfairly demonized. It's a normal question. Not the evil thing they're saying is that
She said FBI agent the case against the brother.
I think you've been unfairly demonized. It's a normal question. Not the evil thing they're saying is that
She said FBI agent fights her and cooperating with the brother.
Trying to prepare Senator McVeigh with a position. Senator McVeigh's testimony, I think, was dramatic from beginning to end because it seems she was. That when she heard about the bombing, she immediately had a eerie feeling that she knew that a brother might have been killed.
All our energy and effort into it, and we'll wait for what the jury says.
Giving the court case number for the United States versus Timothy J. McVeigh. Guilty on all 11 counts.
It's as though Tim wanted to play. He wanted to say it's guilty. But first he wanted the jury trial just in case he got off. But then when he didn't get it, then he wanted the fame or infamy that he did it. I went to Tim and I said, Tim, I need to tell you that I'm not the lawyer you need to seek to get wrong. I told him that I can speak to that for you, and the truth. When I finished, I said, how would the truth help me? Where he had lied and the proof. When I finished, I said, how would the truth help me? And I'm mistakenly said,
I think people forget that a prosecution is not there to lay out a historical record of the entire movement or everything that McVeigh ever did in his life. That's what the history books are for, and that's a different goal. Here, it was through the elements of the crime and hold him accountable.
The criminal law created the Senate, and you got everybody who was legally, criminally responsible for the bombing. There could have been other people who were, if we had the evidence, could have been criminally
universe of people who were not criminals, but who bear some measure of moral responsibility.
이거를 한 자리에서 닦을 수 있는 걸 다 닦고 옆자리 옮겨서 닦을 수 있는 걸 닦고 이런 식으로 하는 거예요.
We tried to round them all up once. It's sufficient. Only Yates and blue. We can't do that again. We have to live through it. The American people have done the wiser about how ugly and how terrible some Americans are about destroying.
노예가 필요하다.
We always believed that there had to be more people involved. We started talking to malicious people who may have supported them. These extreme beliefs just weren't held by a few people. Actually, there are a lot of people who felt the way that they did. So we would go to places like Halloween School for Eastern Oklahoma, where we believed that the faith had passed through. They were following Christian identity. Their belief was anything that wasn't white, stuff you just when it was. That's it.
The Roman city is key to our community. I think they made us was a Roman city. They just put in that downtown. NBC News has learned that the community was penetrated by this woman, Carol Howell, a paid government informant who was gathering information on possible threats against the U.S. government. The government acknowledges in federal documents that she was their informant.
Carol Howe was an Oklahoma aristocrat. Her father was the CEO of a Fortune 500 company in Tulsa. But when she was just into her 20s, she got caught up with some really crazy right-wing folks. At the same time, she became an informant for the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms.
We started following the trail of neo-Nazis. She had a neo-Nazi boyfriend, a guy named Dennis Mahon.
If that's the country follows down, if that will be a rebuild a nation for ourselves.
Remarkably, Howell and Mason appeared together in a 1994 German television interview. How gave the government information before the bombing on alleged threats by others in LOS City, including this man, Andre Strossmeyer? According to federal documents, Strossmeyer was the military training officer for Mahon's organization. Strossmeyer was last seen in Germany.
This is one of Carol Howell's reports to her ATF handbook. The second met Andre Strossmeyer heard out in the city. Andy leads the young adults in guerrilla warfare and tactical maneuvers. His plan was to start a forcible act to destroy the U.S. government with direct acquisition operations, assassinations, bombings, mass shootings, etc. He believes we cannot outbreed the enemy, so we must use mass genocide against them. And of course, the biggest enemy, etc. He believes we cannot outbreed the enemy, so we must use mass genocide against them. And of course, the biggest enemy, the U.S. government.
She reported that there was an increasing discussion of violence, and there was a discussion about blowing up the building, even to the point that they made a visit to Oklahoma City and drove around. There wouldn't have probably been an Oklahoma City bombing, in my view, had LM City been investigated more diligently. Carol Howe, who was happening, and she told him she had seen a guy.
헐 벌써 96.
At the time, she would know anything about who this guy was, but after the bombing, she knew it was Tim because she had seen his pictures. Tim was walking through the campus and there was there's some guy named Tim Tuttle walking with in the German. And Strossmeyer was just an important person that I thought needed to interview. They could meet with Strossmeyer. And I asked a simple question. Why is it that there are real real entities? All of these different radical people, they don't have you. As I expected to know. He might have met them, but eventually,
Well, got the water when I walked out of the building.
okay. Just one of many people I met there. But also that he remembered me and that he had a heart from our church.
One of the things that really concerned me is when I got a hold of his phone message. He called Allegheny City 2 minutes after calling the Lighting Trust Company, and he asked to speak on last Friday.
I already made a lot of phone calls. They were telling people that something's going to happen.
The FBI interviewed thousands of people regarding Timothy today, including his second-grade school teacher. But they didn't think it was important to talk to others about him. He wound up leaving the country with protection services. It was like more than a year later, I think the FBI called and did a telephone interview.
Plus, there's controversy. Some people think he's a source of Israel. Some people think he's a source of the Western Front. At the time, the German government was very unhappy with what we did. Because we had guidelines around the domestic security. And so they wanted to try to get their own information. Somebody should get it.
I personally was responsible for searching the intelligence files here in the United States, and there's no evidence of a sworn involvement. If they had met him at a gun show and told him, 2 weeks before he engaged in it, that doesn't show there's anything. He met lots of people at gun shows.
There was certainly evidence that him that day probably did in Washington State. He kept denying everything. But yet, he was stopped, I believe, by an Arkansas highway patrolman on a road that led to Ellicott City. There were people that said he had been there. I told him, didn't you know it? I know. But he didn't say anything. He said, no, didn't have it. The way that group was always together. There's no way he was not there. Strassmeyer, Ellison, Snell was very good.
On the day Snell was executed, he asked for the TV to be turned on in his cell, and the prison watchdog said that inmate Snell smiled and chuckled as he watched the coverage opening to the bomb. It's just hard for me to believe that it was all coincidence.
That's not a coincidence. The idea of war with the mobility was hatched 10 years earlier among members of the government organization. This was the point that not just McVeigh, but the others who were at LOMC decided to resurrect the country. I came to understand. LOMC was at the height. Covenant sword in the arm, the Lord, move this operation, and he took the miracle. That's where they train these people and overthrow the government. These guys were ready to do it. In court, McVeigh watched intently as the jury filed in. Judge Richard Mate asked for their decision. The jury recommends the following, said the judge, that Timothy James McVeigh be sentenced to death.
I want to give out every day, asking myself, what can I do to feel better? I finally came to the conclusion that today was the it's simply not going to be part of the healing process.
My husband resigned when the baby died. The babies are dead and his friend died. The trial, there's a lot of unanswered questions. I believe I owed it to them to continue that journey to try to get answers to these questions. Over the years, it's been a balance now, almost like a tightrope act for me to not get lumped in with the crazy. I needed to just find my truth, not invent it. I learned about these groups around the country. They thrive on hate. I think it's like a cancer. Went to the Aryan Nation compound in Hayden Lake, Idaho. I had heard Timothy McVeigh had been through there. That's how They help shape his life, you know. And I said, I'm here to see Pastor Richard Butler. Well, they help shape his life, you know. And I said, I'm here to see Pastor Richard Butler. For me, he's the head of the state. That I've got a desperation to know the truth. And I'm willing to dance with the devil to get it.
Let's go for the Bible.
In his sermon, and he looks at me and he says, one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter, and that Timothy McVeigh was a great man and a martyr to the cause. And he actually teared up when he said, I am so sorry about your little alien grandson. He said, I cried for myself.
Since the tragedy here in Oklahoma City, some of those who lost loved ones have found a new purpose in life. Bud Wells, Kathy Wilburn, good morning to you both.
Good morning.
I know that both of you called Bill McVeigh, Timothy McVeigh's father, the forgotten victim. You know, if I put myself in his shoes and I wonder how it must feel,
지자스러워.
you know, to wait to have your child executed.
아이고.
We have to recognize
에이미.
it's significant event. It stays. We know what time the killing's going to happen. It's nothing more than a staged political event. It does nothing more or less exciting than that.
Tim McVeigh's father was on the news. I could see this man, a broken man, with grief in his eyes. My thought was, I want to rebuild it. But I hate how he feels. And I don't want him to let her stop like that. When Bill opened the door, and he introduced me to him. And there's a picture kind of behind me, the tent. Looked Bill at the corner of my eye, and I could see at that moment the love his father had for his son. Jennifer just kind of went to sobbing. I held her face in my hands, and I said, honey, I'll do everything I can to keep your brother from being killed. All of a sudden, it felt like this tremendous weight had been removed from my shoulders. I never felt closer to God. Because what I recognized that Saturday morning was the day that our parents died, we go to the hilltop and buried. The day our children died, we buried them in our heart. Never waited.
Nichols at the courthouse on the first day of his trial. He will face a crowd of people. 12 of those could ultimately decide if he dies.
If I had the opportunity to sit down with Barry Nichols, I would press on who else is involved. Where did the money?
What's the problem? I say you're going to that's it.
Did the funding for the Oklahoma City bombing come from those bank robberies that were done by radical groups? The accused Midwestern bank bandits are white supremacists who allegedly robbed 22 banks in 7 states to take $250,000. Law enforcement officials believe the money was distributed to other white supremacist groups. Members of the gang were frequent visitors to LON City.
Jim had no visible means of support. You got to feed yourself, you got to keep the car going, you got to have money for just to be able to spend the night someplace. He was always renting a room. Where'd the money come from? So it's older, and there were other robbers. He also robbed a gunman named Roger Moore.
About 6 months before the Oklahoma City bombing, a masked gunman allegedly robbed gundealer Roger Moore of gold bullion, coins, and weapons.
McVeigh met with fellow Roger Moore at one of the gun shows, and they become something business partners. he and Roger Moore ultimately had a falling out, and McVeigh is the mastermind behind a robbery at Roger Moore's house, and Terry Nichols committed the robbery.
Roger Moore was called as a witness because Terry Nichols and Timothy McVeigh stole weapons from him, and they were used in part to fund the bombing.
At Terry Nichols' trial, he was not like Timothy McVeigh at all. He didn't make eye contact with him. He was always looking down. The judge had a recess. I saw this little lady standing out in the hall. Realized it was Terry Nichols. I walked up to her. I said, "I'm Captain Wilburn," and she began to cry. She said, "I know who you are." And I put my arms around her. Well, I want you to know, sorry I am Terry Nichols. And then we went back and forth and stepped down. It was like Terry Nichols, the bomber, became my friend Joyce's son. The jury thought he was guilty, but they didn't know how guilty. They had questions just like I did.
The jury found Nichols guilty of both conspiracy and involuntary manslaughter. Nichols won't get the death penalty for his federal conspiracy conviction.
There are people out there, and decisions were probably made very early on that Tim McVeigh and Terry Nichols were who they were looking for, and the same sort of resources were not used to try to find out.
A few days after the trial, I had a letter, return address, Terry Nichols. And I thought, I'm not looking for a pen pal. And if I was, it wouldn't be the Oklahoma City bomber. Then it kind of like dawned on me. Well, who's going to know more about the bombing than the bombing itself? We started writing back and forth.
The Terry Nichols relationship, I still don't really understand it. I personally told my mom, and when we do presentations around the United States, that, if I ever saw Terry Nichols and during the week for 5 minutes, I'd be doing anything.
I have forgiven, yes. Do I think people should be punished? Yes. Forgiveness and punishment are two different things. I want everybody involved to be accountable. Forgiveness is a choice you make. You can forgive, you can stay bitter. And forgiving Terry Nichols is one of the best things that a change for you. Terry Nichols was remorseful, unlike McVeigh, and he told me, whenever I'm not under the threat of the death penalty anymore, I'm going to tell you everything. And he has tried. I'd like to read you part of this letter that Terry Nichols sent me. So to put everything in a nutshell, Kathy, Timothy McVeigh was a manipulator, persuader. Roger Moore, the middleman, who supplied him with encouragement, instructions, and some explosives. And the top dog, the director, who orchestrated it all, is a rogue FBI agent with the help of others, who I will not name at this time. I don't know if what he wrote was true or not, but after that letter, he was notified by the warden that he would take his phone there.
Here's how it works. Timothy McVeigh lives in a special confinement unit that is the building there with the green roof. He will be transported by van to the execution house.
He told us that when the federal government puts me to death, I'm still going to be the winner because it's 168 for Tim McVeigh and 1 for the government.
You have these 3 tubes that are coming out of a wall with the 3 chemicals, poison, killing. The executioner was given the order, and all of a sudden these tubes started spraying in like this ghostly way. And meanwhile, McVeigh is looking straight up at a camera that is giving its live feed to an auditorium where other victims, family members, survivors are watching.
오,
Where's this go to hell looking? They pushed the button and he ripped. He was gone.
He died with his eyes open. Timothy prayed when he was born. I wonder if I would have gone out of my way to defend him. I wonder if, you can, I wonder about all that. McVeigh was a tragic example of a guy who thought our differences were more important than what we have in common, whether objective survival. McVeigh was the tragic example of a guy who thought our differences were more important than what we have in common, whether objective reasons that he felt the way he did, both personal and psychological reasons, and political and economic reasons. But we can't roll the house up. It doesn't matter whether he was right about anything or not. What matters is he decided he should kill people who didn't know, including little kids. But the words he used, the arguments he made, literally sound like the mainstream today. Like he won.
Tim McVeigh set out to destroy the government. He destroyed my family. My brothers passed away in the Oklahoma City bombing, and we go there to remember.
The risk of terrorism is always kind of in the back of your head.
I think there will be civil war in our country. It's right that there are lessons to be learned from what happened here in Oklahoma City.
The reason we come back here every year is that this wasn't a one-off thing. It could really happen again. Where we're standing now with the Albert P. Murrah. The empty chairs represent 168 victims. The gate behind me says 901, the moment of innocence before the bombing. The gate over your shoulder says 903, the after today. This year we're living in is not much different from 1995. People yelling at each other, not making arguments based on facts but emotions. Many folks feel left behind, like their American dream has been stolen. That rage doesn't disappear. It can explode on the fringes that's been seen too many times since April 19th, 1995. The Oklahoma City bombing, it was a huge signpost in history. America, wake up. But that sign got blown down. Mass shooting, 180-page manifesto.
He didn't come to worship. He came to kill. Tree of Life Synagogue has never been the same.
Every time I go there, news report on mass shootings, domestic terrorism, right-wing extremism, it always reminds me of when I was in the movement, how dangerous close we as a group got, how dangerous close I got to committing domestic terrorism. So much has changed from the days back in the 80s. How mainstream extremism has become. That was something we hoped for. I'm seeing that now, and honestly, it scares me. The closest thing that has happened since Oklahoma City, of course, is the January 6th riot on the Capitol. On January 6th, I was the emergency planning specialist along with the incident commander and everybody else who showed up. So I was at that scene for about 18 hours.
when I saw the storming of the Capitol on January 6th, I'm thinking, what's the chances our boys going to be down at the bottom and be involved in this? And I was concerned for his safety.
There's no call for what they did on January 6th. What they did was wrong, and they should be prosecuted for it. Every single day we have protests. The majority of the people up there are peaceful. But I believe as long as our country continues to divide itself, I believe there's more to come. You poke the dog long enough, the dog's going to bite. And you're going to push people to the extremes. And that's just inevitable.
And I drove up to this building 100 times. We used to go on our break up there over that wall, and we would stay. We'd take treats and stuff and go up there and watch kids play in the playground.
For our culture, you know that, right?
Yeah. When I delved into the bombing and started having questions, I told every reporter, I said, you know, it's not going to be too many years that when I tell someone I lost my grandchildren in the bombing, they'll say, which one?
Exactly.
And that's where we are today. It's still hard to believe it's been 28 years.
Love you guys. We'll see you next year. You ready?
I guess.
선물 주고 자러 가려 했는데
근데 100%를 보겠네. 하나 남았어. 어디는
자꾸 은행 점검 시간이래.
야, 이거 끝나는 거 봐줘. 아니 어디 있는지 모르겠어. 하나만 남았는데.
제일 열받는 구간이군.
이거 봐. 찾았다요. 완성. 열심히 일하는 나. 오, 식탁이야, 식탁. 와.
다 깨면 뭐가 있나?
뭐?
Let's start with some easy stuff at the beginning. How did you first hear about that? I heard about Brandy first when I was in 7th grade. Everyone was wearing it at school. You had to have it. If you didn't have it, what was good? And I remember I walked into a store and I bought the star necklace that was all over Pinterest. And me and my 7 friends wore it. And I felt so cool and accepted that I had a piece of Brandy Melville. And I remember thinking that, you know, the girls that didn't wear it, they weren't as great as I was. Maybe they weren't pretty, maybe they were wrong with them.
앨리스 다 준 거 아님? 또 있네.
Social norm at the time.
2개 더 있을걸? 3개인가?
Brandy Melville.
해자네.
Fashion is identity, especially for teenage girls.
그래? 난 해자라고 생각 안 했는데.
It's how you show who you are, what you believe, who you're friends with. And I think Brandy Melville encapsulates that better than almost any other person. But there's also a dark
한두 개만 있으면 너무 조금.
The fashion industry has always been built on the back of exploitation.
when it comes to fast fashion, it often is a story of abuse. From the beginning of the supply chain to the end, we're all being exploited by the queen system.
You say you care about human rights and the environment. What do your clothes say about you?
It's easy to say, who cares if fast fashion brand is bad? We already know this. But the story of Brandy Melville is a story about anti-Semitism, racism, sexism. It's a story about this wider system of exploitation at Brandy Melville and in the fashion industry globally. I'm back in Brandy, and it's really just because I'm a fan. I want to get more things, even though I got way too much already. It's really a problem, but I love every single character. Brandy Melville is probably my all-time favorite store. So I went to Brandy the other day and did some damage. This is the most exciting haul I've ever got ever.
오늘 한 사자도 되네.
It's all from Brandy Melville.
맞아, 자.
One day in middle school, everyone was suddenly wearing Brandy Melville. Brandy Melville was like
내일 사주면 돼.
all the rage. Feminine, very form-fitting, like a lot of
늦어도
shirts
그래요.
are cropped. Their stuff was notoriously bottoms, like A-line skater skirt and like a t-shirt with a puppet on. A lot of pretty like curly prints, like you see bows, hearts, little cute graphics, sort of things like A-line skater skirt and like a t-shirt with a puppet on. A lot of pretty like curly prints, like you see bows, hearts, little cute graphics, sort of trendy like young girl beachy style, like Americana, California. Brandy Melville was like my world when I was a teenager. The reason why I liked it, I mean, I think it's just because everyone else liked it. It was my sophomore year of high school. I was 15 years old, and I went into the Brandy Melville store. I was immediately approached by one of the workers, and she asked me if she could take a picture of my outfit for store style, she called it. And I told her
자러 가볼까나.
제가 이번에
벌써 추석이라니.
Armani suit.
Usually I stay away from Italian,
윤말님 안녕하세요.
especially the one abroad that travel. But we go to,
제목이 뭔가 무서운데.
usually I stay away from but we go to do the body was good. I had a restaurant in Santa Monica and they just was here. Stefan and Jesse. Stefan is the owner of this brand, Brandy Melody, and Jesse was his right hand. He therefore he do everything that Stefan couldn't do. And also spoke a little bit more English. Stefan had zero knowledge of English. Quickly, right away, he began like what in the picture would appear like a friendship.
He was bald, with braces. The only reason I'm bringing that up is because once I found out that he did on Instagram, it was so funny to me that no one has any idea that this man, like, in his, I don't know, in his late 30s, kind of like sneakers and sweatpants on, like running the Instagram, that all the stalls are like fanning over. What's really branding noticeable? Like they wear their clothes and post in our wall, like that'd be so good, you guys are getting level. Bobby Brandy Jua Spoon. It was definitely just great the bar. Yes, you could call him a creative dresser, but never got the title or the free one ever was there. We went into the store for a bit and was like robbing things, throwing in bags. I just all annoyed. But yeah, you think so. And then tomorrow showed up and it was, you know, not anything like, you can style this with that. It was just a bag of clothes, you know, kind of show me what you got. It was a mess. I was really surprised that we were able to have such a large business at that scale. It wasn't an office space, it was like a warehouse of crap. It wasn't like a global, you know, brand. And from day one, that was me. Like, this place is not your conventional focus company.
You want things. Kind of like that adrenaline rush, that endorphin that you get when you find something cute. Fast fashion, brands have kind of figured out exactly what you want when you want it, and you can have it when you want it. A lot of people credit Zara as one of the starter of the fast fashion model. In the 70s, they opened their first store, and then as the 80s progressed, they decided to use quicker trends that they made themselves in-house fast fashion model. In the 70s, they opened their first store, and then as the 80s progressed, they decided to use quicker trends that they made themselves in-house, and then after they got them out, the faster people were buying them. So their whole model was to do quick trends at low prices. They were dropping new styles every week, so that was about 52 seasons a year. Some of the newer brands have gone even farther. For example, advertising that they drop about 1,000 styles a week. And now, social media advertising has made shopping so much easier than it has ever been. And in that way, it's also changed our shopping habits, because we're often seeing things we don't necessarily need, but it's kind of playing into our nature of like, well, I want that. In order for fast fashion to succeed, it needs to be clothing as something that you can pick up and get rid of. And that's why it works. You can access it so easily that it's almost like, why wouldn't you?
I remember once Stefan was bragging about how the store on Saturday, Sunday is like $20,000 or $25,000. And I'm looking at the numbers and I go like, good damn, that's not a bad model. Stefan say, why don't you open a store in Canada? And I go like, would you store? I'm not going to Canada. I mean, Canada is cool. And he was like, just go to Canada. So I opened the first store in Canada, in Vancouver, April 2012. But the big jump was when I opened Toronto. I think you know, I had like a 10-block line waiting outside. It was insane. I had stores come in and complain to me because the line was blocking the entrance of all the other stores, and they were pissed. Who is the owner? What's going on? What is this? This is success.
Based on what I've heard from executive insiders, it's an incredibly successful business. I heard Abercrombie was inside in the brand new. And when the bankers looked at the financials, they were a bit shocked by how successful it was.
Stefano is a very, very, very smart guy. He understood that the social media would get the attention of the masses. Instagram, they had a very efficient impact on the digital girls. 14, 15, 16, that's all they did. As soon as we posted something, you can see the number of likes growing, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, It was like so fast. They never used advertising. Their advertisement was Instagram and was the celebrities wearing things around. We have so many from the business who just posted something, you can see the number of likes growing, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, It was like so fast. They never used advertising. Their advertisement was Instagram and was the celebrities wearing things around. We have so many from the business channels like that my side, they had Jenner, Thailand, just for my friend. I know we did it. The daughter of King Crawford. She happened to live in New York, right above the store.
I'm Ty Berber, and I'm going to tell you what I wear for me.
The farm is not there. So we had literally packages full of clothes left to the concierge.
These sweatpants are Brandy Melville, shout out, because Brandy Melville has been a staple in my life since my 5th grade.
Maybe the people scroll into Instagram and see if you have reached like 1 million followers, you would get a private message saying, hey, are you interested? We are going to send you a box of clothes for free for you to keep. All you have to do is post it, which is normal. Everybody does that.
I don't know why they call the clothes, but thank you so much for being so cute. So cute. The United States and Europe are consuming around 36 billion units of clothing a year, and 85% of that is getting discarded. With numbers like that, where is all that clothing supposed to go? Donation bins are pretty common. I live next door to one, and I can hear it like every single night, hear the big bang, it's going on and on. I've seen these clothing bins get filled to the brim. I think most people think that they actually are donating their clothes, and that is inherently a good thing. But our systems are not in place in order to get clothing to be recycled or donated properly, and therefore it's just ending up somewhere else. Ghana is like a dumping ground for our unwanted fast fashion. We have deals with countries in Africa who hate the clothing, even though they don't necessarily use it.
We are currently in conflict, which is the second-hand economy in the world. Around 50 million dollars. And in this context, Ghana, the country, has a significant. So if you look at the me in the world, continental is around 50 million dollars. And in this context, Ghana, the country, has a significant. So if you look at it, that means like almost like every Ghanaian is buying what that comes in. for the global north. So the US, Canada, UK, other parts of Europe.
In Ghana, second-hand clothing is called Obuniwawu, which means dead right man's clothes. The term comes from the fact that when clothing started flooding in here, people assumed that it came from people who had died. Because why else would there be so much of it?
The retailers buy the bill from their importers, but the retailers have no idea what's in the bill. They invest huge sums of money into basically a supply box. And the quality keeps getting worse. This is because with fast fashion, there's no attention paid into quality anymore. The people, and the only things that you're finding are like, low quality goods.
United States and Europe have sort of forced this arrangement in countries. And when they have tried to stop it, the United States and Europe have imposed punishments on them. For example, trying to take away the duty-free status of anybody that wouldn't take second-hand clothing, or taxing them in ways, or taking away grant money.
Fast fashion has essentially turned all clothing just into waste. It's just being shuffled around the world. You try to make a couple pennies off of it, you move it somewhere else, try to make another couple pennies off of it. And you can't escape the truth, which is that there's too much clothing.
It definitely wasn't until after I worked at Brain & Melville that I even realized that Brain & Melville was part of fast fashion and how fast fashion was impacting the world and our environment.
Stefan's father started a company in Italy. The father was making t-shirts, just t-shirts.
In Italy, the branding that I knew when I was a teenager was the weird sentences that they had on the t-shirts like, dressed depressed, but well dressed.
When I was 19, my cousin started to work with Stefan and Brandy Melvin Family. And I said, okay, can I try? And I started to work in Rome. I mean, I was 19 years old. I was basically working with all girls. It was like the dream for like a guy 19 years old.
Brandy Melville was not popular when he was in Italy.
The girls wouldn't like pull their hair off for Brandy Melville like they do in the US.
While I worked there, they had this like hit.
They started focusing all the products for the US market. Stefan has moved there and paid everything, like every research into the US. That was his main target.
I was working at Brandy exactly during that time. So Brandy turns to this California girl, look, a white, blonde, tall, skinny surfer girl that looked beautiful naturally without makeup. You could really feel the shift coming that they wanted to go in this direction with this type of girl, this type of body shape.
They ended up opening the first one by UCLA in 2009, or something like that.
And that's when like Brandy Melville exploded and became what it became.
He was a teen to be a brandy girl. I never heard of Chanel girl or like Gucci girl or even like Lululemon girl, but this was a teen. He was the brandy girl.
We're headed to Brandy.
It is amazing how much content there is from Brandy Melville employees about Brandy Melville. There are videos of hundreds of thousands of videos that are just like a day in my life as a Brandy Melville employee. Actually, it was my favorite thing. It was a little bit of like a hangout spot. But it's kind of like CNBC. These videos are so popular.
This is what the behind the store looks like right now.
They somehow have become the job that all of these teen girls want to have. When I was 15, I was sitting at a cafe reading my summer reading book, and a woman came up to me and said, "Do you want to work with Brandy Melville?" She was, "You look so cute. I think you would look really great working at our store. And I was like, yeah, I want to work at Brandy Melville. Like, I thought it was so cool. They were basically opening a store that next day in Palo Alto, and she wanted me to be one of the 10 girls who were going to be opening this new store. When I started, I realized that they definitely like found the other popular girls in our community to start working at this store. Were you looking for a job? No, I wasn't looking for a job. I moved to New York. I had no job, no apartment. I was like 30 pounds lighter, just like very skinny, blonde. I walked into Brandy Melville and I was like, oh my god, everyone here is so pretty. Like, I want to work here. They essentially like hired me on the spot. There was a stereotype against Brandy Melville for only hiring skinny white girls. That was sort of just what everyone knew about the store, but they shopped there anyways, and it was so cool anyways. It was like, this is what you want to look like, this is your goal. The white girl, mostly blonde, sometimes brunette, cool girl, like pretty girl, a little basic, but knows how to follow the trend. Skinny, small, definitely young. She's obviously like beautiful. Thin, blonde hair, blue eyes, pale, white.
There was a quiet non-written agreement where you need good-looking girls at the store.
Did Stefan tell you that, or somebody else?
All the guy lied in terms of Stefan. In fact, I was even encouraged to pay them more, even though they were not good at what they did.
I remember one of my assistant managers and I, when we were closing, was another sales associate who was younger. She had this like Swiffer brush, but didn't have the Swiffer pad on the Swiffer. So she was just like plastic concrete on scraping. It's like girls that like clearly don't have some like key working skills. It's just like gone. There's an entire subset of TikTok already in the news where it's people talking about shopping at Brandy Melville and just being ignored. I love Brandy Melville. It's very like exclusive, like you're supposed to feel like you're part of the club if you work there. The energy is kind of like mean girl, catty. You know, you're not supposed to be rude, but they wouldn't fire you probably if you were. I was totally in this vibe as well. I remember like walking around and feeling like I'm like different because I work here and all the people who shop here are just like boring and like, oh, I'm going in the secret door in the back and like you can't come back here. I was always looking forward to it when I was at school. I'm gonna wear the best outfit. I'm gonna, you know, walk past all the customers and they're gonna look up to me and the kids are gonna look up to me. And I felt really special.
For Stefan, if they were really light-skinned and redhead, it was like the number one, the top of the top. It was funny to us because like, oh, he's doing that because he's a redhead. So we would always laugh about him. Basically trying to attract only the elite. Let's call it probably the cool kids in school and everything. That's then after what all the other girls in schools wanted.
It was really hard to find models that Stefan would like. Like, I sent him so many different kind of models. I was really interested in like girls with really unique facial features, but it was very clear the kind of models and the aesthetic that they wanted. When I applied, it was like a shot in the dark for me, to be honest, because I am part Asian, and a lot of those girls in the store, they're all tall, skinny, blonde, white girls, and I was like, I don't stand a chance against them. I remember I had to submit a full body photo, which was really interesting, and also all my social media, like Instagram handle and everything. I feel like a lot of the questions weren't what I was expecting. kids are asking more about like where I like to shop and like what YouTubers I like to watch. Nothing really about like my skills, nothing really about my work history. But you know, being 17 and being in love with writing novel, I was like answering whatever they wanted me to say. I started off as a sales associate. Me and like another minority writing novel worker were the only ones behind the cash register, and we kind of made a joke like, oh, like we're always working together behind the register. But what I noticed is that the really pretty, like model-like white girls, they got to be the ones to greet customers, to like be like the face of the store.
With agent, after they opened in China and the store made a shitload of money,
안녕하세요.
everyone was happy with Chinese people. But in regards of black people, he didn't want a lot of black people.
When I started working there, you go down and you go into the stock room and you see all the other people who are working there who are not white. When I started working there, you go down and you go into the stock room and you see all the other people who are working there who are not white. Yeah, there was an awareness, but we all just kind of side-eyed it and tried to do our job.
I started working at writing novel when I was turning 15. I was a minor, of course, so it's very hard to find jobs when you're not 18. And so I decided that was how to go over. I started out as sitting room, and then I eventually moved to shop. There was no white people working in the shop room. If you're white, you had to be inside. We all knew it was not right that we were all, you know, pushed in the back out of sight. But it wasn't something we were necessarily mad about because I just loved being around my people, like people of color, Hispanic and Black people. So it was kind of like you win some, you lose some.
Fashion has been built on these very racist colonial structures. And also on the backs of women, mostly women of color. And the way that the industry gets away with abusive situations is by dehumanizing this workforce. Even it's forbidden from our consciousness. We have an existing head carrying culture where we carry buckets of water or maybe like 5 kg items on our heads. Our female headquarters, it's a term that literally means she who carries the burden. In Continental, they carry bales of second-hand clothing that's weighing a minimum of 120 pounds with their entire body weight on their head. This is dangerous, and it's literally backbreaking if you carry 6 kg 10 times a day. That's 500 kg on a woman's body. A lot of the girls have chest pains, they have scoliosis from the work. It's literally crushing cartilage, compressing it. And some of them still find a teeth that like sharp tips here, so they're in pain every day. Once you stop the work, then the deterioration will stop, but it will not go back to how it was. See my sisters go through it. Seeing another human being go through it. This is wrong. I don't want you to have to go through this.
I started wanting more branded t-shirts because there's much great material and they look like the perfect oversized thing. I just love the way my Fiji necklaces look with this button detail. And they have this little like Fiji floral pattern all over them, which I think is so cute. I one day was wearing a shirt to work that was a little bit unique. When it came out on the floor like a few weeks later in a shipment, I was like, that's the shirt that I was wearing. So there was this white girl, we were friends, who was like, oh my god, like, Stefan, you just paid me $100 for the sweater I'm wearing so they could copy it. One day I come in, the higher ups were like, we love your pants. And they're like, where did you get them? And can you show us? So I showed them online and they bought the pants. They paid like $50 for express shipping. I didn't get paid for my pants that they sold, so I am confused. Where's my $100? It was such a weird ramshackle way to run a business, but it worked because then they were able to kind of mass produce what these cool girls were already wearing. In some cases, the names of these things on the Brandy Melville website, it will be like Jocelyn shirt. And it will be because this shirt was literally purchased off of Jocelyn's back. Companies spend hundreds of millions of dollars developing a brand. Brandy doesn't do that.
I don't understand this big brand. They have to hire a guy that is probably in his 40s and he has to design clothes for a 14-year-old girl. Why? Isn't it easier to ask the 14-year-old girl what she likes instead of trying to figure out what she likes?
I like the shirt, but not the style. It's just too catchy. I like this shirt. I have it.
We literally was like, oh, you guys would sell socks. Like, and then I started selling socks. They would ask you to look up clothes on his computer and order them, and then they would remake them.
It happened like a few times. We had stuff that had to be recalled because there was an infringement of property rights. And they would get a notice from an attorney, and so they would call and tell me, oh, you have to take all the stuff out.
For a little bit, Jesse was showing me graphics and things, and he was like, okay, what about this color? Product research is what they called it.
The product research girls. There were girls that worked there, and Stefan thought they had like a really good style.
They give credit cards to the girls that they consider wealthy from Malibu, Calabasas, very white neighbors, big families, especially the elite.
It was like, I want that as my top clientele to see what they buy, to produce what they want.
So many clothes.
They come back with a bunch of bags, we get in the bag, they try the stuff, send a few things here and there, see how it feels, and then we do like maybe 200 pieces, we bet it on Santa Monica. If it's a bestseller, we start production.
I'm going to China with Brandy Melville to do a bunch of like product research and stuff. I will be going to Milan and then for Brandy Melville. The executives would take certain favorite girls to China or to Italy to find bracelet styles and something. We saw the Alps from above. Guess who just landed in Colombia?
The girls would go to the factory where a lot of things are made, and then they would help the girls pick out stuff that they would like. And that was obviously an amazing trip to go on.
We got to the factory and I looked through a lot of samples and filtered them out, see which ones I liked. I never finished the vlog yesterday because we were in fittings for like so many hours. It was incredibly competitive to be invited to be on one of these trips. We're living very luxuriously and I don't want to go home ever.
They were treated like queens. Best hotel, best restaurant, best of everything.
I can't wait to see like all of the stuff that we worked on in China make it to all of the stores worldwide. It'll be so cool to see things and be like, hey, like I'm the reason why those jeans are that color, or I'm the reason why those pants fit like that. So cool. Brandy Melville harnesses that energy of teenage girls can do anything. Teenage girls have this amazing design capability. They have this eye for fashion. They are paying these people close to minimum wage to do what at another company these senior leadership I'd be doing to make them extremely rich.
The clothes, let me tell you, the clothes were not that good quality. It was a very cheap product. But Stefan was holding himself as one of the luxury brands.
Some of the stuff was super soft, but definitely thin, wouldn't last long. You'd get holes in the seam. even as a sales associate, having to put a tag in something, and just that like thin little needle of a tag would like destroy it.
I had shops that completely open up. Clothes were just like falling apart. I had entire boxes that I had to throw away. For me, this was mind-blowing.
A lot of the Brandy Melville clothing says made in Italy, which is, I think in the U.S., a lot of people see as a sign of quality and luxury. Brandy was famous for like being produced in Italy. It's an Italian brand. But then I started wondering, made in Italy, yeah, but the quality is quite bad. And sometimes I could hear like the owner talking, and obviously because I speak Italian and maybe sometimes I forgot that I understood everything what they were talking about, I could always hear them talk about the clothes being produced in Prato and like pickups from Prato and factories in Prato. So I always heard about this video. I was like, what is this Prato?
Prato is the most important textile hub in Europe. It's a real long tradition. For 100 years, we are specialized in the luxury brand. People come here from other poor regions to enjoy work. Now we are the biggest in production for the most important fast fashion brands in Europe. The first Chinese people in Prato arrived during the 90s. Now they are 10% of our population. Moda, pronto moda, it is fast fashion. You know, it shows that you use 3, 4, 5 times and then you throw away because they are very cheap. Very, very cheap. Il numero delle aziende presenti sul territorio cresceva in maniera esponenziale. And therefore, the rest is history. But now, this label contains the written made in Italy. They are made in Italy, they are made in Prato, però è uno scandalo, perché diciamo l'italiano è solamente il posizionamento dell'azienda e poco altro.
When I started working with them, basically Brandy Melville is the biggest factory in Prato at the moment. Let's say that they need to produce a certain amount of t-shirts. With a machine cutting all the shapes, and then all those shapes they're given to a Chinese company that comes, takes all the pieces, and bring it back. The part I saw was like, everyone was pretty happy because Brandy was getting a good deal, and everyone was making money. And if they had like a company like Brandy Melville that keep producing, that's a good person, isn't it?
Everybody outsources their production for the most part these days. I mean, very few companies have in-house production. Subcontracting happens in every country. It's still saying factory A, please produce this product for me. Factory A will say yes, but then they'll realize they don't have enough manpower in-house or they've got any orders backed up. So they'll then go down to factory B to say, can you help me produce this product? All of a sudden, you've employed 4 factories and you've got to employ 1 factory. Factory supply chains are really okay.
Di tutti aziende dei controlli di qualità, delle attenzioni che ci mettiamo, che è un pezzo di aziende che troviamo fuori legge.
The meaning the advantage of immigration is the part of police based on Chinese workshops that become familiar occurrence several times a week, dropped by unannounced to one of over 6,000 small-time businesses, some of which employ workers illegally.
There are lots of pronto moda that are regular, but sometimes, not always, but sometimes we find people that was like doing oggettivamente qualcosa di molto doloroso.
The sexual conversation is not unique. It is an industry that has always brought workers from their wages and always has unpaid conditions.
The dressing itself was a toy hero and a coat for 10. All the clothes also carry the coveted made publicity label, which helps sell them abroad.
There's this perception somehow that if it's made in Italy,
but it's somehow better. The truth of the matter is that there are good and bad plastics everywhere. And if you want to see sweatshops, you can see them in Prado, and you can see them in Los Angeles and in the UK. They exist right here in the Western Hemisphere. If something costs very little, it's coming to you in a way that feels impossibly too easy, impossibly too good, there is someone somewhere in that supply chain that is not being saved, that is not being respected. Why am I in very mobile? And then I'm looking at the site is looking for titles, and there's no titles on anything I look at. And when I find this one thing, it says one size fits all. How is it so open? How does it search one size fits all?
At first, we have sizes. At a certain point, all the sizes disappear. You ask someone, it's like, so basically you're losing sales, which is true from a certain point of view. But Stefan's point of view was, you're not losing sales. You're keeping the brand exclusive. It's like a role, like, oh, I need to stay with clothes.
I realized it on my first shift. It was like, what about the medium charges? And I'm like, oh no, we don't have medium charges. And I was like, so it's all small? No, it's not small. There's no size.
After multiple weeks of complaining, we went from one size fits all to one size fits most. And we still like complain because they go, so I'm not even most?
I had an eating disorder that was definitely at its worst when I was working at Brandy Melville. I was recovering from an eating disorder for the 2 years that I worked there. And I remember when I was gaining the weight back to be, very normal-looking person, but I no longer had a thigh gap. At that point, I was very much aware of the pressure to be skinny. There was just like too much pressure to be perfect, I think. Brandy did put me in that mindset where I hated my body. I hated myself. A lot of girls suffered with it. A lot of the girls there. And I'm still recovering, I'm still recovering. Even for me to explain to people for a while. I do remember one time there was a customer who picked up a jacket, and she told me, my granddaughter looks like she's kind of bigger, and was worth kind of bigger. That my entire shift into a mental orbit of me thinking, am I not good enough to work here? I had already gone through, my troubles with being ultra thin. That's not something I ever wanted to deal with again. I went to the back, and no one was telling me it wasn't true. They were just saying donuts and donuts. I remember feeling proud of myself for gaining 5 pounds, and then realizing that, if I kept being healthy, I wouldn't be able to follow company policy and, keep wearing their clothes. That wasn't good for my brain.
I looked to the YouTube and I found so many videos that these people were obsessed with attacking Brandy Melville. I said to Stefan, okay, you do these videos. And Stefan goes, oh yeah, I know. Well, guess what? So our sales went up like 20%. So who cares? That reaction reminds me of the famous phrase of Mussolini. Talk bad about me, talk good about me, but talk about me because it's all publicity. And I don't give a shit if it's good or bad. Publicity is publicity.
Receiving those complaints was basically a confirmation that what we were doing at the time was working.
I hated having so many customers come up to me being so sad and hurt that they couldn't find clothing. And they would come back again and again and again, and nothing's going to change with Brandy. We are having trouble fitting into pants here when the store is meant for us. When we're supposed to be the examples, there needs to be more sizes. What did you try to find?
I think what drives him is try to improve and always aim for perfection. And it's ironic how he was like so busy with his stuff. If you see the way he dressed, he's not perfect either. His body, I mean, he would not be a brand disaster. He dressed like a punk. He has very strong political views. Even talk about that with his employees, and his employees are like really young. In California, they are mostly liberal. So at the time, I think they were like talking about the standard. And it was like, I can't believe this little cat that didn't do nothing all day, that father is rich, and they are talking about Bernie Sanders. Can you believe how fucked up is this country? He was so mad. But his father was rich. That's exactly his point. How you can come from a wealthy family and then you want to work for this communist, Bernie Sanders.
He's libertarian, and he hates taxes. He tries to do everything to avoid them. And it worked out pretty well so far, I mean, for him.
They had like a lot of like libertarian like bumper stickers. I would see those around. I don't know who it was, Ron Paul or whatever the name was.
He liked for people to know that he was libertarian.
In the early Brandy Melville stores, I heard from former employees, Stefan Marchand would give his personal copies of Atlas Shrugged to display in the stores. This kind of brand novel, Atlas Shrugged, is the foundational text for libertarians. It's referenced a lot by people who have these strong anti-taxation beliefs, anti-regulation more generally. I've heard people call it the Bible of Brandy Melville. And they have the other store, John Galt, and I had remembered even asking for it. What is, oh, it's from some book or some story. John Galt is a character in Atlas Shrugged. It's not uncommon for brands to have these private label sub-brands. What is a little bit weird is that it's called John Galt. This is a store for teenage girls where they're going to shop for t-shirts and mini skirts. This is not some libertarian social club.
I don't know what happened. At a certain point, Stefan started to care more about money and way less about people in general.
Reading through all the lawsuits this time that mentioned Brandy Melville, and as I was listening to the exhibit of one of them, something that is mentioned is texting between the senior leadership of Brandy Melville. This piece that was called Brandy Melville Bags, and these are some of the most stylish messages.
We had a good chat. It was a really deep humor, okay.
It was like some place where everybody would get in touch and say hi or there's a really deep humor, okay. It was like some place where everybody would get in touch and say hi or happy birthday or every time they found something funny on social media or on Facebook or on Instagram or wherever they found it, they would post it there with a comment and laugh. It was like a virtual bar. Everybody from Japan, Stefan's brothers, me, the production in Italy, everyone.
Sexual, racist jokes hostile to each other, again and again and again.
Well, you know, when you see something once, okay, then it can be funny. Then it becomes a little bit worrisome. Well, you know, when you see something once, okay, then it can be funny. Then it becomes a little bit worrisome.
I think he enjoyed the juvenile jokes.
Then it becomes a little bit worrisome.
I think he enjoyed the juvenile jokes.
This isn't something that is like, oh, someone got overly offended by like a
I think she enjoyed the juvenile jokes.
this isn't something that is like, oh, someone got overly offended by like a joke on purpose. It was shocking how far they were willing to go.
You think it was a good movie?
I don't know. I mean, when I saw him wearing a Hitler outfit, I wasn't surprised.
Your style photos were taken every day. The second you came up to your shift, whoever was in charge that day would be like, 10 to 50 for style. You take a photo of you and send it to Savon and Jesse. Another weird thing was did they need to do that? Alright, time for your photo. Let's go against that wall and pose so I can text it to the founder of the company you work for.
For me, it was like a very quick, let's just get this done and I'm over it. But some of the girls would be gone for like 20 minutes of their shift because they're doing like a full little photo shoot in the back.
We were kind of told, you know, oh, the photos are countries we want you to like model. At first, it was only full body photos, and then they started requesting custom feet pictures, which I was like, what?
And you're like, okay, now like where are all these photos going of me in like a crop top and a little skirt?
What was the rationale behind it?
I don't really know. One time we were closing, and I asked, what are these photos that you take guys? And it went dead silent, and one of the older girls said that we're not allowed to talk about it. And that's when I went, oh, no. There's something going on that I don't know about, and I don't feel safe anymore. That's been my 2 weeks, and I left.
For each store, we had a group shot with the managers, myself, and Stefan. We received the pictures from our girls, and if Stefan didn't like some of them, he would have sent it back to me privately and say, fire them.
Was Stefan hired by the bank for you?
Of course we do.
What kind of range of specifics? You can't say because you're ugly or something because that's amazing. What would you say?
They're like 16-year-old girls. You'll find like 700 different reasons to fire them. Like, it's too easy. Like that wasn't even fair. And then they asked us we were hiring other people. I was basically being Stefan's eyes, making sure the store was perfect, up to standard.
When I was working in Berlin, some brandy Melville guys from Italy came to the shop and observed us, made weird comments about us and our bodies. From one day to the other, they told me to leave. And I was so shocked. The woman, she was the one that I also had the initial interview with. I asked her, can you please tell me the real reason why you're firing me, because I cannot believe that I have done a bad job. And she told me that one of these managers that came to the shop, that he did not like my body type, he did not find me like physically attractive, and that I'm not a typical brandy girl. My colleagues they were so shocked from that. That if I see a girl shopping in the store that has like brandy style, like ask to take a photo of them. We were told to go up to them, compliment them, kind of like sugar them up and like get them talking. I would say, hey, do you mind if I take a photo of what you're wearing? If you do this for market research and it's just going to get sent to research. And they would be like normally pretty flattered that I would just send it like a regular employee profile to Savon and Jesse. Quite often they respond and say like hire her right now if they really like her. one of the former employees I talked to said that he was working in the New York plastic store, and she looked behind Stefan, and she looked over and had a folder. In the folder was every single one of the photos that she sent over the years for the Sealy image. She said that looking back, that was such a chilling, eerie thing to realize that these photos were being kept for Stefan. Stefan's office.
이만큼만 하고 잘게. 그냥 가겠어요, 말.